Thank you everyone for joining us today. My name is Michael Sarrao. I'm the Assistant Director for Career and Employer Engagement at Magner Center. I'm also the Counselor for the School of Visual Media and Performing Arts. Glad that everybody is joining us today. I'm actually joined by Saima, Rahman, who's one of our college assistants at the Magner Career Center. So she'll be helping us facilitate the session. To start, today is our How to Get a Mentor Q&A. I think what we really wanted to do was go over any questions people may have about how to outreach to potential mentors. What are the best practices? Obviously, you want to make an informed decision about a particular career, right? So first and foremost, what do? You reach out to somebody that's an alum of the college. That's the easiest way to do it because you have a natural icebreaker there. So the idea is that you can go reach out to alumni and be able to say that, I see that you are an accounting major. I'm currently in the accounting program on my CPA track. I'm interested in learning a little bit more about the industry. Would you be interested in speaking with me about your experiences in the field? Something short and brief. This is something that you could send to alumni through, let's say, LinkedIn, for example. And we will go over the LinkedIn page, the Brooklyn College Alumni LinkedIn page. We will go over that in a second. But that is a really great way of outreaching to people. Short, brief, but to the point. All right. And of course, alumni, that's the best way to kind of do that with alumni because, like I said, there's that natural icebreaker there. They were a student, you're a current student. If they were part of the accounting society, so are you, let's say. Another natural icebreaker. I use accounting as an example, but this is true across the board. So I've helped students in the past make connections with people across all the 5 schools here at the college. And just to let everyone know, the 5 schools at the college, of course, are School of Business, School of Education, School of Natural Behavioral Sciences, School of Humanities and Social Sciences, and School of Visual Media and Performing Arts. I would say in the last 15 to 20 years, the Magner Center has been around for about 17, 18 years. I was actually a student here at the college. I graduated in 2002, but we didn't have a mentoring program per se at the time. I was put in touch with somebody that became my mentor, and I'm actually still in touch with him to this day. It's 17 years later, and I've still stayed in touch with him. And we'll talk about that too. How do you stay in touch with a potential mentor without bothering them or things like that? Like, how do you do that in an effective way? We'll definitely talk about that for sure. This PowerPoint goes over several different key areas. Define definition and the role of a mentor, advantages of connecting with one, how to find a mentor, how to outreach to a potential mentor, appropriate behavior and expectations, super important. I know that we're in a remote setting. Again, there are certain things that you have to do to make a good impression. Even if we're in this remote setting, we're doing this through Zoom, you still have to make a good impression. Be centered on your screen, good lighting, good sounds, all of it. Yes, before the pandemic, we did have students meet with mentors, obviously in person. Lots of times it was during the mentor's lunch break. Maybe it was right after work. It was in a public setting. It was near their office. That was something that, and this is something still you could potentially do. I mean, some people were doing that in 2021. But again, take all the safety precautions, of course, due to COVID. I would say mostly people should still be meeting with their potential mentors through Zoom, on the phone. Totally fine. Okay. How to represent yourself well as a mentee. What does that mean? That means being prepared with the type of questions that you're going to ask them. All right. You don't want to go and then meet with the mentor and they say to you, all right, so what can I help you with? And then you draw a blank. So we have to make sure that you are well prepared. What are the type of questions? And obviously it's covered in this PowerPoint, but I would say you should have 5 to 7 questions available to ask the mentor. Now, just to go a little bit further with this point, what I've seen work between students and mentors, mentees and mentors, is that obviously your first initial message to them should be short, brief, to the point. I have seen this backfire on students who actually put in too much detail about their background, ask all the questions that they wanted to ask all in one gigantic email. And the alum will either not respond or take a while to respond or feel overwhelmed. We don't want to do that. It's short, concise email to the point, as I mentioned earlier. After that, then you will coordinate with the mentor. What time are you going to chat? What day, what time? Is it going to be through Zoom? Is it going to be on the phone? Do they prefer just email? You have to be ready for anything that that potential mentor is interested in doing, is willing to do. Remember, these people are working, they're working full-time jobs, 95% of the time, unless they're like freelancers and whatnot. You have to be very aware of their schedule, be very accommodating, and adapt to whatever it is that works for them. Once you do set up the time to speak with this person, you always make it a little bit more about them first. Okay, you shouldn't just jump right in and say, hey, you know, I'm really looking to work in accounting and can you help me get a job at PwC? It's like, no, that's not how that works. Don't do that. They're not trying to help you get a job per se. Do not ask for a job. That's not the right way to go about it. It's a terrible first impression. All right. No, you want to make it a little bit about them first. Okay, so I've used accounting a few times. Let's use something else. Well, we have a computer science. So we have a couple of people here that are interested in computer science. Let's say you're a software engineer, let's say, or you're interested in software engineering or programming. Okay, so you're meeting with a programmer. You'd want to make it more about them. Why did they choose that career track? Why did they choose that field? What are some of the things that they did when they first graduated to find that job? Where are they currently working? What are some of their daily tasks like? What are some of their daily duties? What are some of their daily challenges like? That's okay to ask as well. What are some of their daily challenges? Okay, so again, like, you want to know what to expect. Okay, accounting, going back to accounting really quick because I remember this specific story about how a student asked the accounting professional, how many hours a week do you work? That's super important, especially during peak tax season. It's 90 hours a week, potentially. This goes back to what I said before about making an informed decision about a particular career. So you need to know that, okay? With the programming, what are some of the daily challenges like? In this ever-changing world of technology, you don't want to become stale or out of date, let's say, in terms of the current technologies, whatever that you're going to need to know. All right, so that's going to be a really great example of how do you stay on top of these trends? How do you stay certified or knowledgeable about these particular technologies that you should know? All right, and stay successful within your particular career. So again, it's more about them first. Okay, 4 or 5 questions about them first, because if you can show that mentor that you have a vested interest in them, that you have an actual interest in them beyond just like, can you help me get a job? Because we don't want to go about it in that way. They know that you're trying to get some advice from them to push your career forward. They know that already. But if you make it more about them first, here's the thing. People love to talk about themselves lots of times. That's very true. A lot of alumni have said that. A lot of people have said that. You know, once you get people talking, they like to talk. They like to talk about themselves, which is fine. That's great. Like I said, make it more about them. Then you would switch it to, this is where I'm currently at with my career track. Okay, this is what I'm currently doing. Is there anything I can be doing right now to make myself competitive? If so, what would that be? Does that mean going after specific certifications? Should you be looking to join any kind of clubs on campus? Are there any organizations, professional organizations you can find on LinkedIn or elsewhere that would be great to add to your resume? You can even ask them to look over your resume to give you feedback. That's also a very good point too. You could do that, okay? And another thing that you can ask them would be, is there anybody in their network? Is there anybody at their particular company or organization that would be interested in speaking with you? Okay, that's growing your network beyond just an alumni mentor. Now it's industry contacts now, or industry professionals. So this is why we say this presentation is about self-initiating to potential mentors. It doesn't always have to be alumni, industry professionals, and this is a great way to do that. You can ask the alumni mentor, do they have anybody in their network? It doesn't have to be an alum, and that's how you start branching out. There are counselors for each of the different schools, all the majors that are listed here. Okay, so you have a specific career counselor. For education, it is Kendra Lewis, longtime coworker and friend of mine. I've worked with her for many years. She's the counselor for the School of Education. So I will be coordinating with her in February to reach out to potential mentors and, of course, students that would be interested in being paired that way. But again, a session like this is really geared to have students try to make those connections now, because this is a really great skill to have. I know that a lot of students are afraid of reaching out to potential mentors because it's weird, right? They're strangers. You know, like, who's going to respond to me? You know, okay, you know, it's a natural fear. Yes, we have to overcome it. Some students say, well, you know, I feel weird messaging people on LinkedIn because they don't know me. You know, well, what's the worst that's going to happen? They don't respond? Okay, fine. My argument about people that are on LinkedIn is that if you are on LinkedIn and your profile is public, you shouldn't complain. The whole point of LinkedIn is for professional networking. So one of the things also to mention is that if you do look at some of these profiles on LinkedIn, and it's very bare bones, there's not a lot on there, these people are probably not checking it. They probably joined LinkedIn because everybody else was doing it and then never really utilized it. All right, so if that's the case, I'd probably avoid those profiles. It's the ones where obviously there's a lot of information on there. It looks like somebody took the time to develop their LinkedIn profile. Those are the people that you're going to want to speak with. And of course, if they are also highly active on there, posting on there, you can see that on their profiles, what their activity is. You know, how to represent yourself as a mentee. Like I said, being prepared, showing the mentor that you did the homework. You looked at their LinkedIn profile. You have your list of questions in terms of how you want to go about asking those, and then switching it in terms of to you and what you need to be doing right now. If they could put you in touch with somebody at their organization, that's really great. Ideally, that'd be fantastic. I do know that, again, it's like, well, if there's a job opening at a particular company, could you mention it without saying, can you get me that job? You know, there's some subtlety to this, you know, so let's just be a little subtle when it comes to that. Like I said, most of these mentors know you're trying to get your foot in the door. Okay, so maybe they'll take that cue and be able to say, well, maybe I could put you in touch with so-and-so. That would be ideal. Does that always happen? No. It would be nice, but we would see. The other thing that you have to keep in mind too is sometimes the alum or the mentor is a one and done type person in terms of, like, they will meet with you, they will give you some advice, answers, and then that's it. Who sets those parameters? They might, or you can ask as well. Can I follow up with you? Can I stay in touch with you? Some will say yes. Some might say no. I mean, it depends. They may say they could try. I mean, if somebody were to say that, then it means that they're probably very busy and they might not respond right away. I think that's fine. I think that that's just, you know, natural. You're going to have some people that just meet with you the one time, and then you're going to have others like myself who have been lucky enough to know my mentor for 18 years, 17 years, whatever it is. And I stay in touch with him every so often, maybe at least once a year, twice a year, could be more than that. But again, you want to do it strategically. You don't want to be in these people's faces every week, every other week. You know, we have to be careful of that too. You know, again, subtlety. So one of the other things I'd like to mention in terms of that too If it is somebody that is interested in staying in touch with you for the long haul, every so often, every couple of months, you could give them an update on your career progress. That would be really great, especially if they gave you some advice that was super helpful. Let's say they told you to get a certification in a particular area, or let's say they told you to join a specific organization, let's say. And you did that, and that led you to joining an organization, and then you've been going to even more networking events that organization was holding. Then you can write back to this mentor and say, hey, I took your advice and it was really great, and this is what has happened as a result. That's even more reason for a mentor to take a vested interest in you. You approach them, you were interested in who they are, their career track, okay? And now you're showing them that the advice that they provided was really helpful and it did put you further into your career track. I've done that. I've done that with my own mentors, and I have more than one mentor. And yes, you can have more than one mentor. And sometimes students will say, I've reached out to 5 people and I only heard back from 1. That's totally fine. I say cast a wide net. Don't just stop at 5. You could send messages to 8, maybe 10 people. As long as it doesn't sound generic either. Remember, your messages to them, short, brief, but also shows that you have looked at their profile. When you utilize LinkedIn, especially during your internship and job search, these potential mentors, if they're active and they're posting things on their LinkedIn feed, then you can comment and that would be great. All right. You can like, you can comment. It's a nice way of staying on their radar without like sending them a message or texting them or whatever it may be. We have to start with the resume first. The resume, once we're happy with the way the resume is, the content, is it marketing you the right way? Are you using it as effectively as possible? Sometimes people have decent looking resumes, which is basically just a listing of all their work experience. But if it doesn't go into quantitative data, how many employees were you working with on a daily basis? How many customers were you working with? How much money were you dealing with? Quantitative data, qualitative data. What was the results of the work that you've done? Quite a few students tell me, oh, I've worked in a doctor's office. I said, all right, so what did you do there? And they would say, I've done everything there. I said, but then I look at their LinkedIn, I'm not their LinkedIn, I look at their resume and they say, answered phones, sorted paperwork, answer customer questions. And I'm like, you can go into so much more detail with all of that. And we do have videos on our YouTube channel that goes specifically into how to write effective bullet points. Okay, so you can find that there, but that's one of the things that you would meet with one of the career counselors about. How do we make your resume effective, as effective as possible? Okay, once you are happy with the resume itself, then you will go to your LinkedIn, and then I would have you literally copy and paste your content from your resume into the LinkedIn profile. I will show everyone my LinkedIn right now. If you are willing to use LinkedIn and use it in this way during your internship search, job search, then you could set it to private or invisible, and then it's not there it's not going to be visible anymore. So you can do that. So I would say that you could take advantage of LinkedIn as much as possible. And then once you're kind of done with it, let's say you landed the internship job, whatever it may be, you spoke with a couple of mentors. If you want to set that to private, then you can. Because I've met with people before who are like, I really don't like using social media. I would say use it as a means to an end, which is building your network, outreaching to people, especially during your internship and job search. And then once you're set, then set it private and that's fine. There are plenty of people that have LinkedIn and never check it. There are plenty of people that you can message on LinkedIn and they don't see that message for months later. I've actually had that happen where I reached out to an alum and they didn't respond until about 6 months later. And then they changed their settings because they didn't realize people were actually messaging them. So that's one way of understanding. That's just a natural thing. Sometimes somebody could have a really great profile and they haven't checked it in a while. That's fine. Like I said, you have to cast a wide net in terms of potential mentors. Let me go to my LinkedIn. A couple of things in terms of LinkedIn, and this is something, like I said, you could work with your career counselor with. But if you do, this is exactly what they're going to tell you anyway, which is having your profile, a good photo, a cover photo, especially if the cover photo relates to your particular career industry. Obviously, the Brooklyn Bridge for Brooklyn College. Your title. Sometimes people will just put Brooklyn College student. I'm like, we can utilize that a lot more. You could say aspiring accounting professional. You could say aspiring nutritionist, aspiring software programmer. You say aspiring, that would be fine. Or sometimes people wear a lot of hats, right? So I work with a lot of students in the School of Vision Media. They tend to wear a lot of different hats. What could they say? They could say videographer, / producer, / writer. So you could put several different titles for yourself here as well if you're more someone that likes to wear a lot of hats and wants to be able to market yourself in that way. Sometimes also with students that are like that, I'll tell them that they could always put so you could say aspiring multimedia professional. But let's say you have plenty of experience already. Okay, let's say you have a lot of experience, like Saima, you are aspiring accountant. So again, what do you put on there? Do you have to say aspiring? If you already have bookkeeping experience or accounting experience, you could just then say that you are an accounting professional. Okay, so this title here can be revised any way that you need. Okay, up here too, you're going to notice also with your LinkedIn link, mine's personalized. Everyone else here probably still has those extra default numbers that are after your name. You can go here, edit public profile, you click on that link, then you go here to the pencil, and then you remove those extra numbers. It just makes it look a little bit more polished. It's just a little nitpick that we have. It definitely helps them. Because if you were able to put that shortened link, that personalized link on your LinkedIn, an HR person, even one of these potential mentors, they'll know that you took the extra step to kind of make that, look great and polished, basically. Okay, if you have a common name, though, John Smith, you have a very common name, you could put a dash, you could put a period in between your first last name, you could add maybe another number at the end. Do not put your birth year, don't put, 02, 98, whatever it may be, don't do that. But you can do that where you add in some type of number, 1, 100, whatever it is. Like I said, you go to the pencil, you can change this any way that you want. Multimedia professional. But let's say you want to spell it out. You could say videographer. Then you add this line here, that vertical line, which is above the enter key. Normally should be shift and then the line above the enter key. Okay, videographer, producer, writer, etc., etc. Okay. How about this? Nutritionist, blogger, could be that too. Where am I going with that? So sometimes people have more than one interest, and then you can actually combine it into something unique. I know an alum of the college. I could probably bring up her LinkedIn profile in a minute and give that as an example of somebody who was a nutritionist, but was also interested in blogging. She was a bit of a journalist herself. Media was interesting to her. So what she did was she combined the both. She created a YouTube channel and a cookbook that was focusing on nutrition. So she was able to take those two interests and then combine them into one. That's another example of how you can kind of personalize this headline to how you want to market yourself. Now, what I've done, because I'm part of the School of Vision Media and Performing Arts, I try to make my profile look as visual as possible. So over the years, I must have hosted over 300 events, if not more. So I have photos from company visits, pre-pandemic, of course, events that we've done, et cetera, et cetera. Now, of course, we're in this remote setting right now, but we could always take screenshots of events. Like if I wanted to, I could screenshot this screen and just put that on my profile. So you could do that as well. But anytime that you can add in photos of the work that you do, it has to make sense for your particular career. Does it make sense for accounting? Probably not. But media, yes, for sure. Communications, yes. Could it be photos from you at some of these club events? Why not? You can make it look as visual as possible, and that makes it just stand out a little bit more. And going back to what I had said before in terms of getting the resume to be in a place that you're happy with, once the resume is set, you literally copy and paste that content here into your profile. Okay? All right, there's some questions in the chat, possibly. Yes, there is a limit to the headline. Also, you don't want to put too much in the headline because then that might show that you're like all over the place, unless you're okay with being a Renaissance person, which is you have a lot of interests and you can do a lot of things. So that could work too, but you'd have to own that. If you want to not confuse anybody because you're worried about that and you just want to stick with your particular career, nutrition, programming, accounting, screenwriting, writing, like social media marketing, like then you could just stick with that. You could always just edit it any way that you'd want. That's what I would suggest in terms of the LinkedIn profile. Once you get your LinkedIn profile to look a lot like what your resume is, your about section or your summary. Some of you may use a summary on your resume. You don't always have to. Sometimes the summary might be good to highlight specifically what your career focus is, especially if you don't have a lot of experience in that particular field. Let's say you want to go into software engineering or programming, but you haven't done the internship yet. Okay. A summary could help by just stating that you are an aspiring software engineer, currently pursuing coursework towards a computer science bachelor's. Okay. And then you can mention some of the knowledge that you've gained from your, let's say, coursework. I say this because if you're an aspiring programmer and all you've done is worked in retail or worked at a doctor's office, we have to, again, that's still transferable skills. Your experiences that do not relate to your career path are still transferable skills. Your ability to work with diverse clientele, your ability to work in a fast-paced environment, your ability to multitask, to problem solve, to think critically. I know a lot of people like to downplay stuff like that. It's like, all I did was answer phones. It's like, yeah, but you answered phones, but you had to deal with people's complaints, right? Let's say because you're at a doctor's office and they didn't process the insurance, or the insurance was written wrong, or whatever it may be, that you can solve that problem. It's still transferable skills, okay? And like I said, you also want to look at your projects that you've done towards your degree too. So if you are a nutritionist, you had to write a paper about whatever, any kind of topic, you can mention that on the resume. You can mention the courses that you've taken towards a degree. Anyway, that's more for a resume writing workshop. We are going to have those again in February, or you can discuss this with a career counselor. And like I said, we have plenty of material. This is the Brooklyn College alumni page on LinkedIn. Yeah, so how do you find similar degree alumni on LinkedIn? So again, you will go to this page. Is usually the best way to do it. Go here and then you can do a search. So if you wanted to do a search for videography, just randomly, I'm just picking that one, videography. 548 alumni show up. What I would suggest is go through these profiles and see who would you want to speak with. Okay, and you can customize it even more in terms of years. You can even mention the company, where they work, et cetera, like again, Apple, Department of Education, all that stuff. You can put all that in for your different searches and people will come up. So like I said, videography, 548 people came up. I would look at, most likely, I would rather suggest that you look for people that have a photo. Okay, they're maybe a little bit older, so they graduated 5 years ago. If you want to speak with somebody that's a 2018 graduate, that's fine too. What are the benefits of that if they just graduated? Well, my thinking is you would want to ask them, what did they immediately do after graduation? What did you in the first 6 months or a year after graduation? Like you can ask that, okay? Of course, check to see if they're working in 2018, 2019. Check to see where they're working. If they're working at Sony, I keep using Sony, sorry, NBC. If they're at NBC, how did they get there? You know, so there's that. And of course, the older people that are older, alumni that are older, 5 years, 10, 15 years out, you know, they're going to have much more experience. Can you reach out to a vice president? Interesting. Possibly. You could possibly do that. Just keep your expectations realistic. They're a VP. Are they going to get back to you? I don't know. Also, it depends on how much information do they have on their LinkedIn profile. Was it their photo, vice president of whatever, NBC, and they didn't really have any other information on the profile. Realistically, they're probably not checking it. You want to try? Try. Just follow the steps that I mentioned before. Quick, to the point messages, not your life story in the message. You scare people away that way. So like I said, you go through. So videography was one example. Accounting, well, we have 83,000 people that are listed here from Brooklyn College. But of course, if you put accounting, do we want to guess? I would guess maybe 12,000. Ooh, wow, look at that. That was close. Saima, I was close. You see that? 11,190. Okay, in that situation, where do you even start? Same criteria. Look at when did they graduate? What companies are they a part of? What's their actual job title? This is another thing to think about. Another keyword is what's a potential job title that you would want to have after graduation? Entry level, and then of course, what's your 5-year goals? Again, these are things that you could talk to the counselor about. So if you want to be a nutritionist, that's the buzzword. If you want to be an outreach manager, that's another one. What does that mean? What's an outreach manager? Again, that could be social media related. You want to be a social media coordinator, a social media manager, events planner. There's all kinds of job titles. You just have to know what those titles are. And like I said, that's something you could talk to a career counselor about. You could also use this other resource called mynextmove.org. Let me bring that up. You can do a search by a particular job title or career path. What's copywriting? Copywriting is writing. This is usually the place to go if you are interested in, or if you're an English major, or if your social media could overlap with that too. If you're a communication major, like this is an area, creative writing major, this is an area that you could look into, copywriting. So again, it's about speaking to the career counselor, doing the research in terms of what are some of the actual job titles or career paths you can take. And then you can click on any of these links and they'll go into some detail in terms of what does that person do? On the job, what would you do? What are some of your knowledge, skills, and abilities? This also helps for you to do the research about your particular career when you speak with the alumni mentor or your potential mentor. Being able to do the research already and say, I know as a copywriter, these are the things that I would be doing on a daily basis. But from your experiences as a copywriter with 5 years of experience, what are some of the daily duties like? Does this match? What are some of the daily challenges like? This is the most effective way of utilizing the mentor and going into questions like that. I think we've covered all these areas, the follow-up and the thank you note. Now, I do know that we did talk about the follow-up. Let me touch upon that again. After you've spoke with your potential mentor, you have to send them a thank you note. You have to, within a day or two, okay? It's the same as going on a job interview. You have to send them a thank you note after. Even if there were 3-4 rounds of interviews for the internship or job, you send a thank you all the time. Before the pandemic, people would obviously, they could actually send like a written note. That could be potentially something you could do. Have people done that during the pandemic? Yeah, it's up to you. I'd probably just send an email, a really nice email. Now, what do you say in the thank you note? Again, all this stuff is covered here in more detail in this PowerPoint. Okay, but to go over that very quickly, the thank you note should not be super long either. It should be brief. Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate all the expertise that you shared with me. I especially found it interesting that, and then give an example of something that maybe you both spoke about, something that the mentor had said that was interesting to you. That would be really great. When you write back to an employer that interviewed you to thank them for their time, it's the same strategy. Thank them for their time and that you really appreciate, and then mention something that you spoke about. It could be company culture, it could be the type of work that you'd be doing. That's the best way to write these thank you notes. How long should a thank you note be? A short paragraph, 3, 4 sentences, 5, maybe at the most. You don't want to write too much. Okay, and following up. In the follow-up, you could say, I hope I can follow up with you. Can I join on LinkedIn? Or you probably already would have covered this when you spoke with the mentor anyway. You can ask them, what's the best ways I can stay in touch with you? I know that you're very busy. Is that something that you'd want to do? Good way to approach that, and they may tell you, well, I'm super busy. I'll try to respond as much as I can. If someone were to say that, don't get your hopes up too high. I think that might be their way of saying, like, I'll try, but I'm really busy. Other people might say, absolutely, message me on LinkedIn, or absolutely message me, let me know what's going on with your career progress, or message me and let me know what my coworker says, because I'm going to put you in touch with my coworker or my colleague or whomever, someone in their network. That's a good follow-up too. Oh, I spoke with Sarah and she was really great. And she gave me great advice about XYZ, whatever it may be. Again, a lot of this just comes down to proper wording. Okay. And then, of course, then we talk about networking, which again, like I said, is a natural part of all. After each round, yeah, sometimes. It depends. Yeah. Again, that's something that you'd have to talk to your career counselor about. I don't think it's harmful to be able to do that. Like if you went through 3 rounds of interviews, again, how long does that all take? That could take weeks. Sometimes that could take more than, you have 1 interview per week, let's say. There were 3 rounds. I've actually had people tell me that, so for NBC in particular, there were like 6 rounds of interviews at NBC. Wow, 6 rounds. There's a lot of people, it's a big organization. Do you send something after each of these? Short, brief, to the point? Yeah, 6. I've actually been on a job interview where I was interviewed by 8 people at one time. At one time. So talk about a marathon. Yeah, sure. That's 1 a week, 2 interviews a week, let's say, if there's 6 rounds. But then I was interviewed by 8 people at once. What do you do in that situation? You definitely have to know what you're going to say, and then you definitely have to maintain eye contact with 8 people. And don't let anybody feel like they were left out in any way either. So again, that's something you could talk to the career counselor about. If you haven't bookmarked this Google Doc, please do. This has been our lifeline throughout the entire pandemic and remote world, where we've been adding all these events that we've been putting together. And again, we're updating it. We just added another event we're going to do in early February. But as Saima said, obviously today is how to get a mentor Q&A. Then we have how to be a standout intern. So that's really a great session. But in terms of the networking part, we have the education mini fair, the paid internships panel. There's the 2, as Saima said, in the morning and the afternoon. There are employers and alumni that are going to be at all of these. That means that these people could potentially be mentors for you. So same strategy. If you go to any of these Zoom sessions, in the chat, you can ask, can I stay in touch with you? How do I stay in touch with you? Can I add you on LinkedIn? Same thing. If they say yes, do the same thing I just mentioned to you now. Add the person and then add like a little blurb that says, hey, I attended today's session. Or if you want to wait, because maybe a lot of people are going to message these people, maybe you want to wait a week, that's okay too. You could say in a week. By the way, I attended last week's paid internships panel and I found it extremely interesting. And thank you so much for sharing. And do that. If they add you, great. If they don't stress about it. It's just the way it is sometimes. Some people want to be helpful and they just can't. Maybe they'll get back to you in their own time. And then there are those that will message you back right away and are much more like interactive or engaging. Sometimes all you really need is just one or even two mentors in your life, and that'd be fine. I've had two solid mentors over the last few years. I've had many more, but these two people have eventually become my friends. So there's that too. Some of these mentors may eventually become, your friends, your colleagues. You may end up working with some of them, which is actually kind of funny. I met with a student many years ago who wanted to be a meteorologist. She was an education major with a TV radio minor, right? And she wanted to combine those and become a meteorologist. A meteorologist is a weather person. They'll tell us when there's snow coming. Yes, Carmen, definitely story time with Mike. So I put her in touch with an alum at NBC, Rafael Miranda, and he gave her all kinds of advice about how to be a meteorologist, what she could be doing to make herself competitive, etc. Even encouraged her to apply to the internship at NBC, which she ended up getting, and she ended up interning with him twice. Great story. Okay. And then she was able to build her network by getting in touch with other meteorologists from all these other different news stations around town. New York One, CBS, ABC. She is now currently the ABC News weather producer and also works for News 12, Brooklyn and the Bronx. Yeah, her name is Hopa Senwaka. There is a great video about her on our YouTube channel. I did an interview with her about a year ago on Zoom. There's also two really great articles about her on the Brooklyn College website. You guys being a part of this session today is really great because you're discovering this community, this ever-growing community that we've been building with our alumni and just industry contacts across the board. So while you're here as a student, and even a recent grad to an extent, just try to utilize these services. And even after you've graduated, you have the knowledge, you have the skills and abilities to be able to self-initiate your outreach to potential mentors, and they can help you kind of clear the path in terms of your career. So if there's no other questions, I think I went over everything. So I think, again, what's the game plan? Game plan for all of you, please review the BPR presentation, go through it. Like I said, we were very meticulous in terms of all the information we put on there, okay? Typical questions, the type of emails you could send, what's your thank you note look like, all of it. Check it all out, review the playlist that we have on our YouTube, follow us on our social media. Not because it's like a shameless plug, it's because we really do put a lot of great content on there, jobs, internships, and more. So strike while the iron's hot. So if there's an internship, SiriusXM just posted their summer 22 internships. That's going on our social media very soon. So please do that. If there are any other questions, you can always make an appointment to meet with a counselor of your particular school. And you guys can feel free to email me. If you do want to do some type of follow-up session, we could do that as well. But I feel like we touched upon a lot of things here. Okay. Yeah, and follow me on LinkedIn as well. Message me and that'll be great. Okay, thank you everybody so much for your time. And good luck on your search and your outreach to potential mentors. Again, it's going to be great. So thank you, everyone.
Make sure to check out the My Career tab on the BC Navigator app, where you can track your career progress based on the amount of credits you've earned, stay updated on upcoming events from the Magner Center, and watch our videos for insight and advice on your career field.